Earlier, I pointed toward a tension that often arrives disguised as progress. A new opportunity appears, a partnership, a client, a market, a project. Nothing about it looks wrong. In fact, most of the time it looks earned. The business has grown enough to be considered. The leaders become visible enough to be invited. And because of that, saying yes can feel reasonable. But underneath that moment sits a quieter pressure. The pressure to absorb what is available simply because it is available. Not because it belongs. Not because it fits. Because it arrived. And over time, that becomes difficult to separate from growth itself. This shows up first in how leaders evaluate opportunities. Sometimes something enters the field and immediately becomes a consideration. A conversation begins. A proposal gets reviewed. Time starts moving toward it. It stays hidden because opportunities rarely arrive carrying visible consequence. They arrive carrying possibility. And from the outside, it looks like expansion. A leader says yes to one thing, then another, and then something adjacent. Nothing feels dramatically off course. Each decision can be explained. The opportunity made sense, the relationship mattered, the timing seemed right. But over time, something begins to accumulate. Not revenue, not activity, obligation. The calendar fills up with commitments that were never part of the original direction. Attention becomes divided across things that arrive at different times for different reasons. The cost arrives gradually. Not because the opportunities were bad, but because acceptance compounds. And every commitment, every new commitment inherits something that came before it. And it keeps going. Because the opportunities create momentum on its own. A leader becomes known for availability. Eventually, availability starts shaping direction. And over time, momentum or movement begins following access instead of intention. What commitment in your life exists primarily because it was available and not because it belonged? If there were people in this room speaking honestly, certain patterns would emerge. Some would describe calendars that no longer resemble the priorities they claim to hold. Others would notice that many of their current obligations began as opportunities that felt fortunate to receive. Someone might recognize how difficult it's become to separate strategic movement with accumulated commitments. Another would describe being respected, visible, and increasingly fragmented. There will be stories about leaders who became successful enough to attract more opportunities that they could properly evaluate. About founders who spend significant portions of their week managing commitments that they never deliberately chose. Someone noticed how often access creates obligation. Others recognize that saying yes once can continue generating consequences years later. There will be stories of opportunities that looked aligned at the beginning and felt heavier later. And no one will call it misalignment. They will call it growth. And over time, that interpretation allows the pattern to continue. Because growth is difficult to question when it arrives carrying recognition. The patterns will sound practical. That's why they persist. Now, this tension doesn't need to be resolved right here. It does not even require a decision after you watch this video. You can carry it back with you without removing anything. Just notice what entered your life because it belonged there, and what entered because it was available. And then let whatever belongs to that distinction become visible in its own time.